locate the chat box and toggle the to icon to everyone to ensure that we can see your questions and your comments. We'll get started shortly, but while you're logging in, also let us know where you're logging in from and what type of work you might be looking for. Always want to take advantage of networking opportunities. Our in-person audience will have opportunities to network afterwards, but we also want our chat box folks, if they so feel inclined, to share their job search focus and where they're logging in from. Again, welcome to Job Club. We're so glad you've joined us today. We will get started shortly. We have a wonderful panel of HR and recruiter professionals today who will be sharing some wonderful insight and tips on the job search. For now, as you're logging in, please locate the chat box and toggle the to icon to everyone to ensure that we can see your questions and your comments. Let us know also where you're logging in from today and what type of work you're seeking or targeting. It's always exciting to see the reach of Job Club. Since we went online, we have had people from over 30 states that have joined us and over 60 counties in Kentucky. So we appreciate everyone who's logged in today and that you're joining us for this fabulous information that we'll share today. Lindsay, anything in the chat box you want to share where people are logging in from? So welcome.
So far, we have people from Lexington, Richmond.
Awesome. We will go ahead and start today's program. I know people will continue to log on for the next couple of minutes, but again, welcome. We're delighted that you're here with us today. This program, we try to do 1 or 2 times a year, and it's always a very popular program, and we all learn things and have great takeaways from hearing from our HR professionals and recruiters who are in the trenches. They always have the best advice, timely advice on the job search. So we look forward to their comments today. Our agenda for today, we would like to share any success stories that have come in. Also in the chat box, go ahead and put in the chat box if you've had a recent interview. Success stories can look differently for different people. Maybe you've just updated your resume or your LinkedIn profile. Perhaps you've invited someone to a networking coffee. Maybe you've had some interviews or landed a job. Let us know in the chat box. Share some successes or things that you've done to advance your job search or career change since we last met in that chat box. We will have our panel. Then after the panel, we'll share some job leads, partner updates, and then we'll give you a sneak peek at our next Job Club program, what that will look like. The mission of Job Club is to provide a positive environment for motivated job seekers to network and learn best practices for the job search. We meet the second and the fourth Tuesday of each month at 9 a.m. at the Fayette Cooperative Extension Office here in Lexington or online. And we always welcome in-person visitors. If you're not able to come in person, then certainly join us online. Our schedule can be found on our website listed. Our facilitators, I'm Caroline Francis, Director of UK Alumni Career Services, joined by Diana Doggett, who is Special Projects with Cooperative Extension, Amanda Shagney, Associate Director of UK Alumni Career Services, Nicole Waite, a partner with UK Steps Temporary Employment, Nicole's also on our panel today. We have many people behind the scenes that help make this happen. We have Lindsay Caudle and Christy Kaufman with the UK Alumni Association, Suzanne Smith and Sunny Saylor with Extension. And we so appreciate our team of people that bring you Job Club. A reminder, we are hosted in a hybrid format, again, in person or Zoom webinar. We also have Facebook Live option. That is a view only option, so no chat moderation or job lead newsletters if you're joining us only by Facebook Live. So if you want the newsletter to follow up, we do send a newsletter out in the afternoon after Job Club with leads that employers have sent us. So please let us know, join us on our email list, let us know if you'd like to receive that. Also, we encourage you to review our free resource packet. That can be found at the link below, and also you can see that whenever you go to the website. Employers and recruiters are always welcome to attend Job Club. We usually have a few drop in. In-person employers or guests can have a 1-minute spotlight to share an active job lead with the group, and that will be later in the program. Also, again, watch your email later today for job leads that have been shared with us. Many of our job leads that we get have a short turnaround, so we also want to drive you to our LinkedIn group so that you can keep an eye on that group every day or so. That is updated. Some attendees are conducting a confidential job search, so we ask that you're respectful of privacy in the chat box or people that you may see here in person. Just keep that in mind. Recordings and PowerPoint slides are available at ukalumni.net/Job Club. Welcome to our first timers. You will receive a follow-up survey later today asking for feedback, and that will also put you in our system to get your reminder before a future Job Club meeting. Have any success stories come in that box?
It looks like we have a couple who have had interviews.
Oh, that's
waiting
awesome
to hear back.
Oh, that is great news. Good luck. Go back and watch some of our previous presenters that have presented on interviewing so that you're ready for those interviews. Definitely remember the STAR strategy, the acronym situation, task, action, result when you answer those behavioral questions, which you'll be sure to get in future interviews. At this time, I'd like our panelists to unmute and turn on their video. Take me just a moment here. I need Suzanne, it jumped out. Bear with us one moment. We're having a little technical issue. All right, we can test our speakers here. We have Melinda Moore, who's with HR business partner with TempurSealy International. And Melinda is a Morehead State University grad. We have Arnold Silas joining us. He's a talent services manager with Kentucky Farm Bureau Insurance. He's a graduate of the University of Northern Colorado, Western Kentucky University. He is also a SHRM certified professional. We have Sara Talbott. Sarah's a talent acquisition consultant with Hanna Resource Group. She also is SHRM certified, and she's a graduate of the University of Louisville, Western Kentucky, and EKU. And we have Nicole Waite. She's an employment specialist with UK Steps Temporary, and she has degrees from the University of Kentucky. Again, our welcome to our panelists. And audience, are you able to see our panelists? Okay, so first, I would like for each panelist to share a little bit about their company and what they're sourcing for. And Melinda, we will have you go first. What types of positions are you looking for? And tell us a little bit about Tempur.
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity. We are our company is obviously originally Tempur-Pedic mattress company. We acquired Sealy in 2013 when it became TempurSealy. I currently for corporate have 41 open roles. Some are going to be entry level, some are going to be very specific in what we're looking for. I would say probably my most crucial roles that I'm trying to source for right now are going to be some of my accounting roles. I do have just some accountant level roles open. Maybe 1 year of experience. We would take someone who is fresh out of college if they have done an internship, maybe that has been focused on close cycles, general accounting practices. So those are going to kind of be my crucial roles that I'm trying to fill right now.
Great, thank you for sharing. Arnold, would you share with us a little more about what type of positions you're looking for?
Perfect. Hey, appreciate the opportunity today. So I'm with Kentucky Farm Bureau. We're a one-state insurance operation. A lot of the jobs we're looking for currently are entry-level claim adjuster type roles. That's a great job to get your foot in the door with KFB. It's actually the job I started with the company in. Other than that, similar to Melinda, we have a wide variety of roles that we're looking for. Some high-level IT and accounting roles, some administrative assistant type positions, as well as some customer service oriented roles as well. So the vast majority of those are full-time. For the most part, we have a hybrid work schedule. Some of those jobs are a bit more in the office than others, though. So I will say that, but appreciate the opportunity to be here today.
Thank you very much, Arnold. Everybody likes to hear about hybrid or remote opportunities. Sara, would you share next, please?
Absolutely. Good morning. I'm so excited to be a part of this great panel. So my role is a little bit different, working with Hanna Resource Group. I'm a consultant for various groups. And right now I'm working with two different groups. I'm working with Cornet Advertising in Lexington, Kentucky. And they have a few jobs listed on their website related to account executive, account coordinators, people wanting to get into advertising and marketing. Cornet's a great place to be. So I'm working with them right now. I'm also working with Kentucky Eagle. They are a beer, wine and spirit distributor. And we are working to get some sales reps positions all across the state to get Kentucky Eagle out there. So those are the two big roles I'm trying to fill right now.
Great, thank you. And Nicole.
Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Job Club. I had to say that being a part of Job Club, but I also work here at the University of Kentucky in Human Resources. My department is titled STEPS. STEPS is a part of employment here at the University of Kentucky, and STEPS is once again, it's temporary employment. We do hire for full-time and full-time and part-time positions. Many of our positions have the ability to transition into regular positions. And so I should say, to point out a few key positions that we're recruiting for now, a payroll analyst and a records clerk. Both are for our HR department. Of course, we recruit for the entire university and medical areas, but those are two of the key. We also do have some administrative roles that we often recruit for, and some patient services roles. So yeah, you guys, I'm excited once again. This is my second time being on the panel. So I'm very, or maybe third, but I'm very excited about today's panel. Can't wait to hear what everyone has to say.
Thank you all. Our first question, let's talk about how COVID has changed recruiting efforts. So I'd like a couple of you to share about how it has changed the way your workforce works. Also, if you could comment on the Great Resignation or the quiet quitting, if you're actually seeing that, any advice you would have on how to job search now that COVID's changed things a bit. Arnold, why don't you share first, please?
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much. First, with just how COVID has changed recruiting efforts, really it was just, I think, a move for our interview process to really be more adaptable to the hybrid virtual interview space. That was something that Kentucky Farm Bureau had not done prior to COVID. I am very fortunate to work for a company that did not lay anyone off during the pandemic. We continue to hire and promote employees here at Kentucky Farm Bureau. So I should say I'm fortunate in that regard. What's wild is during 2020, I feel like recruiting was not super difficult. And then 2021, that completely changed with, the job market becoming very hot on into this year. So there's that. So what we've done since then, I guess we are experiencing, yes, that Great Resignation movement, to answer that part of the question. In the spring, it was really, I think, due to the fact that we were not as flexible or work from home friendly as a lot of other companies were. A lot of companies were hiring at that point, and it's easy to see what companies offer remote jobs and which ones don't. So I think a lot of people, saw opportunities elsewhere and they jumped on those opportunities. Since that time, we have really moved to a more hybrid work environment at KFB. In addition to that, just really emphasizing the flexibility aspect of work. So, if you need to go home and meet the dishwasher repairman, we're cool with that. We want to be flexible, and we realize that life happens. If you need to get your kids to or from somewhere, we're going to be a lot less stringent on the way we used to be in terms of time in the office. So yeah, I think that's where we're seeing things now. Again, very hot job market. So it's been tricky, I think, recruiting wise. And I think the pressure we're seeing now is just salary expectations. There's again, the job market's super hot. I think for people in these technical skill sets, especially in IT and accounting, we're seeing salary expectations just grow each month. So that's something that we're having to, be very intentional about keeping up with. Thank you.
Thank you. Melinda, would you also add a little to that for us? What are you seeing?
Yes. So what COVID did for our company, we were 100% in office. Obviously, during COVID, initially we did do a furlough with some of our employees. A good portion did come back, but given the market, we did have to eliminate some of those positions. We then hit a high towards the end of 2020. We started hiring again. Everyone was working remote. So being in the mattress industry, everyone was maybe sitting in their bed working and realized, hey, this is not comfortable. So that forced us to have to start doing those virtual interviews because no one was allowed to come, on site, be in person. So that did change our interview process significantly. We are still, however, for the most part, an in-office company. We do have a few roles that are remote, some of our IT functions and some of our consumer care, and then our field sales associates are going to be those ones that are remote still. We do offer some flexibility if you do have those one-off situations where you have to go home and meet a contractor or you have a sick child. You do have that flexibility to work remote on occasion, but we are an in-office company. So with how the market has pivoted to doing these remote roles, that has been a huge factor in us having issues with hiring new associates.
And thank you for sharing. Let's move on and get your advice. We would like to hear your advice on what gets your attention on a resume or an application. Just what resume application advice do you have for our audience? We know you see hundreds of these every week. So Sara, why don't you begin and share with us a few tips for resumes and applications?
Absolutely. Thank you. So I think one thing I really noticed is I need it to be easy to read. I like bullets. I don't like long paragraphs. The average recruiter honestly spends maybe 2 to 3 minutes really looking at a resume. There are keywords I'm looking for. So definitely having those keywords that are related to the job you apply for maybe makes me look at it, maybe that 3 minutes instead of that 2-minute mark. So I'm definitely a bullet person. Keywords, neatness. Those are the big things that I look for when I'm looking at your resume. I know things. Another question was, what gets someone screened out? It doesn't get it screened out, but I definitely get distracted if someone puts a photo. I see people now, a lot of younger people, Gen X, they rank themselves. I don't know if the other panelists have seen this, but they rank themselves in their abilities, and it'll be like 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, and they'll rank themselves in competencies, and that really distracts me as well. So those are some things I see that I maybe don't care for, and then some things I see that I do care for.
Great tips. Nicole, what would you add to that when it comes to resumes and applications? I know you see a lot of them.
Yeah. Actually, mimic a lot of what Sara said. And in addition, I'm just going to go ahead and go to the kind of distracted, away from, kind of boot a application or a resume out. We actually use a system where you do apply as well as submit a CV or resume, etc. And so there have been some applicants who may feel that they do not need to complete an application just because they have attached a resume. And that is something that is very discouraging for us. And, they may put a message in there, or I should say the applicant may put a message in there to see resume or something like that. And that's kind of discouraging. But as far as drawing attention to definitely those keywords, those verbs, highlighting those right at the top. Like I said, just to mimic what Sara already said, it gives us time to move through as quickly as possible. And, so that we can, depending on, I should say, how many people we actually have in that applicant pool, we may not have as much time to screen all those applicants. So to make yourself stand out, be sure to read the job description, of course, and make sure that you have those skills and things and those, like I said, keywords and verbs visible for us.
Awesome. Thank you. What would you add, Silas, to that?
Well, everything Sara and Nicole said is right on point from my perspective. Again, I'm very nitpicky when it comes to resumes. No pressure, y'all, but I think that resume should be almost perfect. So when I see, anything that's misspelled, if it's a job that you've already left, every task should be in past tense. Those are things that I'm kind of keying in on. I think attention to detail is so critical for so many jobs. And if I see a lack of that on the resume, when you should be putting your best foot forward, it really makes me question in day-to-day work, are you going to have that same attention to detail? So that's the only thing else I would add.
Thank you. We're going to periodically pause for questions in the chat box. So our audience that's online, please put your questions in the chat box and we will periodically stop and answer those questions. Melinda, would you like to add anything else on resumes or applications? What gets your attention? What gets people screened out? What advice do you have?
Everything that everyone has said so far is exactly what I look for. I make sure that first off, they have the requirements for the role. We do the pre-screen. Sometimes it filters them out, sometimes it doesn't. So that is the first thing I look for. If you're not qualified for the role, there's no point in even looking at this resume. Second thing, I do also look at the formatting. Is the spacing even? Is all the font the same? Also on the application, one thing that kind of we don't always screen it out, but as if we always ask, you know, your desired salary. If you put $1, I don't know if you're asking for $100,000 or if you want, you know, $30,000. Sometimes if we really like the resume, we will do just a phone screen and just, you know, that will be my first question, because I don't want to waste the candidate's time and I don't want to waste my panel's time either, you know, trying to go forward with something when they're completely going to be out of the salary range.
Now, I appreciate it when employers talk salary in that screening interview so that you can be more efficient with everybody's time. Going into the telephone interview, you kind of led me into that, Melinda. Do your companies still conduct telephone interviews for that initial screening, or is it all done on Zoom? And what's the purpose of that, and how can people prepare for a telephone interview? Nicole, will you begin on that one?
Absolutely. So that initial phone interview, it is like more, I should say, screening process. It is a filtering process, to be honest. And so it actually is a great time, of course, to see if the candidate may be a good fit for the position, as well as before going into a deep interview, as well as, you know, the candidate being able to ask some questions to see if, hey, you know what, this is not what I thought it would be. It may not be a good fit for me. And to ask the questions like Melinda mentioned and Silas, you know, about compensation, things like that, how flexible someone is, you know, how many skills, the expectations, etc. It's really a good, quick filtering process. But I should say a good way, a good phone screen, of course, just like a Zoom, because for us, we do not conduct our initial first interview via Zoom or face-to-face. It is a phone interview. You know, we like that initial phone conversation before that face-to-face or Zoom, because we do still conduct both post-COVID. We have that option. We give our candidates that option to to interview in person or via Zoom. But I would just say, once again, being prepared means dressing the part, mentally putting yourself in that position that you're being interviewed, no matter what, dressing the part, reviewing the position, the job description again, the company information, etc. I would say, you know, don't just think you're going to get away with a bare minimum with a phone screen, because there is power in a phone screen. And I would think that some of the other panelists would agree. There's definitely power in that phone screen.
Silas, why don't you chime in on the telephone interview and how that's conducted and any advice for that?
Yeah, typically we always do phone screens for our roles. It's usually about a 15 to 20 minute conversation. What we're trying to do is one, clarify salary expectations, their work environment preference, as well as just kind of their overall availability. Robert here asked, why discuss salary before an interview is made, before an offer is made? We just want to make sure we're not wasting people's time. I think Melinda discussed that. You know, if you want 100 grand starting out as a claim adjuster, we need to, you know, probably part ways. But sometimes, you know, those salary expectations are about $15,000 to $20,000 off. To me, that's not far enough to say no automatically. So sometimes it's, hey, let's talk about the role, talk about the culture, talk about the great benefits we have, and see if that salary expectation is still where you think it is. Again, we don't want to waste people's time. So if we need to part ways at that point, that's fine. In terms of strategy, I'm really listening to how excited do they seem about this position and how intelligently can they speak to the role. So have they looked at the job description, or have they just applied to a job title? And then do you seem excited about the position? Because if you're not excited about the job at the beginning phases of it, I'm very doubtful you're going to be excited about the job once you start in that role. So I want to hear some genuine interest on the part of them. From my perspective, there's always 3 questions I'm going to ask, no matter the interview format, that you should have a good answer for. The first one is just talking about who you are and what you're about. The second one is what interests you about the job. And then the third question is, why are you the best candidate for the position? So anytime I'm in an interview, I have those 3 answers in my wheelhouse, and I'm ready to speak to that well. So that would be some advice to people, is just, you know, come prepared to answer those types of questions, and, you know, have a good response to why are you interested in this role. I think that's often overlooked. And, someone could really look strong on paper, but then you talk to them on the phone and they sound not excited in the least about the job. And I have serious doubts about moving them forward in the process after that.
Silas, those are great questions. Could I have you repeat those questions so that our audience could write those down? I agree, no matter what job you're interviewing for, you need to be prepped to answer those 3 questions confidently and succinctly. So will you share those 3 questions again?
Yeah, the first one is, I always ask people, tell me about yourself. So, what's your background? What are you about? What are you passionate about in a work setting? The second question is, why are you interested in the role? Again, that tells me you've looked at the job description, you've thought about yourself in that role, and you can speak to why you're genuinely interested in applying. And then the last one is, what makes you the best candidate? So again, you've thought about yourself in this position, you're taking what's on your resume, pairing that with what's in the job description, and you're speaking intelligently to why you are such a strong fit for the job. So I would encourage all of y'all to think about those 3 questions and have a strong response ready.
Awesome. Melinda, let's talk a little bit about interviewing. Why don't you share with us, what do strong candidates have in common? And also, what are 3 interview questions you think every candidate should be prepared to answer?
So some of the interview questions that I ask are, I want you to kind of know your resume, because I'm going to look at your resume and pick some things off your resume that I feel are relevant to the current role. And I want you to be able to depict to me how you're successful in that role and how your past experience is going to make you a good candidate and a successful employee in this current role. I want you to be able to relate those 2 things. Also, I think most successful candidates, the strongest candidates, are confident, but they're not cocky. They know they can tell me how they've been successful in the past. They can explain to me how they improved processes step by step. It's very clear. I can understand their language. And they also can tell me somewhat about my company as well. Like, they've done their research on my company. They know kind of a little bit of what our org structure looks like. They're not going to know indefinitely, what our cross-functional roles are, but they're going to know a little bit of, where we're located, how we operate. And that's going to go a long way in an interview, I feel like.
Great. Sara, this one is also important. I want all of you to chime in on the interview question. Share with us advice on interviewing. We know you've interviewed lots of candidates through the years. What would you share?
Absolutely. I think Melinda hit on a lot of good points. Being confident, but not cocky. I think being able to articulate yourself very well. I just said, of course, but not, having some filler words, not going, it's okay if you have to think about a question. You can say that to me. I'd rather you think about it, your answer, than just blurt something out. Research about a company is crucial. I can't think how many times I've interviewed people. They don't know what they've applied for. They don't know anything about the company. I also, when I interview, I like it to be a conversation. I don't think of myself as sitting in the big White House and I'm the boss. It should be a conversation. You should be interviewing me too, because we need to figure out, are we a fit for each other? And if we're not a fit, then there's no harm, no foul, but let's figure it out. Let's have a conversation. So I really like people who have a conversation. And I also like people who ask me questions. So as a recruiter, so I don't work directly with my companies. I'm a third party. So sometimes I may not know the answer, but a lot of times I do. So I will answer your questions about insurance and PTO and salary. And I think those are good things to talk about to see if you are a fit. Questions that I think really every candidate should be prepared to answer is, I always ask, I have you tell me about your current role. Why are you looking for a change? Why are you looking for a new position? You've been here 10 years. Why not anymore? So that's a question I usually ask. If there's any type of employment gaps on your resume, I may say, well, it looks like you had about 6 or 7 months where you don't have anything. What was going on? And we're seeing that a lot more now with COVID, because people maybe were the full-time caretaker for their kids who were being schooled online, or for a family member. Just tell somebody, there's no shame in that. Tell somebody, I took care of my kids during COVID. It was best for me to do that. And then another one I think people usually ask is, how do you handle difficult situations? We want to know that you're able to handle difficult situations, that you're prepared, that you think through things, that you present logic. So those are a few things that I look at, and some questions I may ask when I interview, regardless of what position it is.
Great behavioral questions, definitely. Nicole, what would you add?
Oh, let's see here. I believe everyone's pretty much covered everything, but I'm just gonna a bullet point a few so we can move on here. We definitely ask about shifts. There's a variety of shifts in this in temporary employment, and so what shifts they are available, time of day shifts they're available, and the days of the week that they're available to work, compensation range. Let's see here. A good one, let me see, that I like to hear is how they fit that they will be, and I believe this was just mentioned in a different way, how this job will be a good fit for them, and how they feel this will be a good fit for them, and how we will be vice versa, I should say, how they would be a good fit for the job, how we will be a good fit for them. And even telling us about a job that they've had previously, or some type of experience, whether it be an internship, externship, whatever it may be, something that they had, some type of job or career that they've had that they felt accomplished, that they thought, hey, this is a really good fit for me. And then last one I would say, or the last two, is listening to that I, we, and team factor, because of course I want to hear about you. So I don't mind some eyes, like the cockiness that Sara was talking about. I don't mind hearing about some eyes, but I want to hear about we, and what someone feels they can, some of that reassurance of what they can bring to the team, what they can bring to us. And last, I would say conflict, how they do handle conflict. And even priority. Oh, that's a big one. I can't believe I didn't even think about that one. Prioritizing. I think that's one of the oldest ones. It's not going to go away. I want to know, tell me about some situations where you had to prioritize, or even prioritizing the priority, because there have been conflicts where, hey, I have these two extreme things that I need to get done. I want to know how you handle that, how you are under pressure. And so those are just some more to add on to that.
And definitely on the time management question, if you use technology, always a great opportunity to share what specific types of technology. Let's pause here a minute and see if questions have come in the chat box that we can have our panelists address. Lindsay?
The first question is, why would someone who meets the minimum qualifications not be selected for an interview?
Okay. Melinda, would you like to take that one?
Sure. I feel like when you're putting out your, filling out the application, you might meet the minimum requirements, but there might be 50 other people who have applied for the role. And they're going to have those additional qualifications. They might have, be really advanced in Excel, which for, a senior accountant, we require you to have a 4-year bachelor's degree, but we also want you to be very proficient in Excel because they're working in a lot of spreadsheets. So if you have one candidate that, 5 out of 10 that have this Excel experience, they're probably going to be the ones that we're going to look at closer, because that's going to be less work that we're going to have to do when they move into the role. So you want to look at proficiency as well, not just the minimum requirements.
And sometimes we never know how much experience other candidates in the pool have. Sometimes maybe they've done that exact same job somewhere else, or they had been with the company earlier in their career. So we never know what we're competing against. Would anyone else like to add to that on our panel? Okay. If not, then do we have other questions?
The next question is, for someone who has a physical disability, how would they address that in a Zoom interview?
Okay. Sara, would you like to take that one?
Sure. I think the best thing you can do once that interview is scheduled, I think it's just a candid conversation, right? If it's a physical disability that can be seen, we're going to see it. It can be discussed. And And we obviously, if you're the right candidate for the job, we need to make accommodations, and we will make accommodations for you. So obviously, if the job requires you have to lift 50 pounds all day and you can't, that's a different story. You obviously wouldn't be the right fit for the job. But if there's ways that an organization or a company can make accommodations, an organization and a company for the right employee, for the best employee, will make sure those accommodations are made 100%. So I think it's just honestly having that candid conversation with the interviewer. We've heard a lot of things when we've sat in interviews before that won't scare any of us off. And so just be honest. Just be honest. There's no need to hide it. Just be honest with us, because we don't want you to get into a situation if you do become employed where you're not able to do the position.
Great. Would anybody else on the panel like to add to that before we move on?
I will add to that. We were doing a lot of virtual interviews, the end of COVID. Then we did move back, to in-office 100%. One candidate that we did do a Zoom interview with had a physical disability, which was not apparent in the interview and it was not brought up. However, whenever they show up to work, we realized that we were not prepared for the situation because the conversation had never happened because we weren't aware of it. So I just think it's just really a good idea just to, like you said, like Sara said, just be very honest and make it a very candid conversation, because we want the best person, the right person for the right role at the right times, regardless of, any disability. If you can do the role, we're going to make sure that we make you successful to be able to do that role. But we don't know what we don't know. So you have to tell us.
Great. Thank you. Other questions?
Next, why is experience valued more highly than potential?
Okay. Who'd like to take that one?
I'll try. I've always been told and heard that the best predictor of future performance is past performance at a high level. I always am intrigued by high potential, but I think at the end of the day, the stakes are pretty high for us to make sure that we're bringing in the best person for our organization. So if we have two, people who have seen, that we like equally, but one has a ton of experience in that area, to me, it's very hard to get away from that and take the risk on someone with high potential. I know that's probably not the answer you want to hear, but that is kind of what I have seen us practice in the past. But I can also say too, it seems like we have really moved towards hiring a lot of strong entry-level talent who have a lot of those strong interpersonal skills, and knowing that we can train up those technical skill sets. I know for a lot of IT and accounting jobs, though, that's a little trickier. But I would say if you're one of these people that have that high potential, but not the experience yet, I think now's a good time for you to be looking for roles. And I would feel very hopeful that you can, get in with a strong organization.
Great, thank you. Also, one of the things we share with clients, if they do lack some of the experience, are there ways they can get that? Perhaps if it's volunteering, taking on leadership roles in the community, maybe taking a class or getting a credential or a certificate that would help show some experience in the field, perhaps that they're targeting or trying to move toward. Other questions? Yeah, we'll bring the microphone.
As I stumbled coming up with the words.
How do you present yourself? It's been 25 years since I've had to actually look at my skill set. I've just gone to work every day for 25 years and done my job. And I have a lot of skills. They're very specific to my 25-year tenure in a federal court system. My potential is phenomenal. I'll just be honest, because I'm a self-motivator. I goal-oriented. There were not a lot of chances for me to promote at my previous job. So I had to just kind of make jobs for myself to not stay stagnant. How do you do that and move into the private sector when it's been so specific to one job for so long?
Great, good question. Who on our panel would like to address that?
I'll take a stab at it. I think for one, when you're tweaking that resume, again, as was, I think Sara or Nicole might have mentioned, the skills you have on your resume, make sure that they align with what they're looking for in that job description, as long as it's being honest. And then for what I've just heard, I hear someone who has sought to add value to the organization they've been involved with. So sounds like you view your job description as kind of the bare minimum, and then you have added to that from there to continue to add value to your organization. So I think that is how I would frame that, possibly in that interview. When they ask about why you're leaving, it seems like you've done a good job and put your best foot forward to try to, add as much value as possible. And then now is, kind of a natural stepping off point to what's next for you. That's my 2 cents.
Any other panelists want to address a job change or career change when you've been in one field for quite a while?
I will. I think Silas said a lot of good things for you. You sound like a go-getter. I think we would all agree about that. But I think those transferable skills, a lot of skills you can transfer to your next job. I always give people this example. My brother was a school teacher for 6 years. He was a middle school teacher. He is now an insurance agent. And I asked him one day, I said, what skills went from the classroom to being an insurance agent? Because those are very different careers. And he said, being able to solve conflict, working with a team, being a team member, prioritizing, organizing. And so he was able to take his career from being a middle school teacher to being an insurance agent now. So I think looking at those transferable skills and seeing how they go. Also, when you talk to a recruiter with the company, you may not fit in that role, but if you have a really good interview with them, a really good screen, they'll remember you. I promise you that. Where I work all the time, candidates are remembered when we have openings, when other coworkers have openings at other organizations, and they will say, hey, I know this person, I interviewed this person, I screened that person. So really what you put forward, if you have that personality, that go-getter drive, you may not have applied for the right role, but that right role with that organization may be later on, and you may be remembered for it.
That's a great question. We're going to have lots of jobs and careers, and often they're going to be in totally different areas. We had a prior job club presentation on that last year. You may want to go look at our archives and watch that excellent presentation. We also have a University of Kentucky Career Management Week scheduled for November. It's not on our website yet. Those webinars will be free and open to the public. One day we will have a panel of people who have made drastic career pivots, and we'll also have some tips and strategies on how to make a career change or a pivot. So it can be exciting, it can be scary, but it's reality. We're going to be working in lots of different jobs and careers. Let's move on to a few more of our questions I have prepared for the panelists, and then we can jump back to the chat box. Let's hear about LinkedIn and websites. So I want to hear from our panelists how they use, or if their companies use LinkedIn, Indeed, other job boards. Melinda, would you begin on this question?
Sure, absolutely. We do use Indeed, we use LinkedIn, and the way we are utilizing this is we're working through a third party called Shaker, who is managing those platforms for us. We have our jobs automatically scraped from our TempurSealy site. We have 21 promoted jobs that will go to LinkedIn, and most of those are going to be our corporate roles, the ones that we need filled the most. I just got put in the dark. And we're using LinkedIn more for like salaried professional roles, and we're using Indeed more on our manufacturing hourly side. And when you apply on either one of those platforms, the application will automatically roll over to our recruiting site. I will say one issue that we are having is if you apply through Indeed, it's a quick apply, so they're not filling out the full application. And this is one way that we are screening out candidates, because if you apply through Indeed for a role and you don't fill out the complete application, you're going to get a notification from Indeed every single day for 7 days that says you need to go back in and complete the application in order to be, to further in the process. After 7 days, if these candidates don't do this, they're automatically dispositioned in our recruiting system as withdrawn, opted out. So that's kind of a clue to say, hey, they're not paying attention to their email, they're not following up and trying to move forward in this process. So we have actually had a few resumes that looked pretty good that the hiring manager actually said, well, did they get a notification to complete the application? Yeah, they did. They get it every single day for a week. So be sure if you're doing things through Indeed or LinkedIn and you get a notification that there's something else you need to complete, go in and do that as soon as you can. And if you need help, there's usually going to be an email or somewhere that you can go to get additional help to complete those.
Great advice. Who else would like to chime in on the panel on how your companies are using websites, job boards, LinkedIn, and advice?
I'll speak to that. We actually, of course, have our own application system. I'm pretty sure the other panelists here do also, but we do use Indeed and LinkedIn also, and even I believe our student employment in the past, I'm not sure if they still do, use Handshake at some point also, but LinkedIn and Indeed, especially for our on the healthcare side, for some of our more medical positions like medical assistants, patient registration, things like that, some of those positions, nursing, things like that. And that seems to go, because those positions seem to, go out a little farther on Indeed. People are, like you said, entering that job search. And so that, people from, like you said, some of these border states like the Indianas, Ohio's, things like that, that may consider relocating or something like that for a job, that seems to be, that has been proven to work well for us, I should say. And it does take our applicants to our jobs, a web page to apply for jobs there. And as I believe Melinda mentioned, it's not this full application either. We'll use those engines a lot for our screening process, but it has been proven to be successful for us. And once again, as Melinda has mentioned, when it comes to LinkedIn and things like that, it is for more of the professional or faculty type of positions versus Indeed maybe, like I said, like I mentioned, those healthcare and some self-administrative things like that. So, but yeah, we do.
I just want to add on the panel. We do encourage all clients to have a LinkedIn profile, to actively use it, to keep it updated. We've had past wonderful presenters on utilizing LinkedIn, so check out our Job Club archives of past presentations on LinkedIn. It's an incredible resource. If someone is not on LinkedIn, whether they're job seeking or not, you're not taken as professionally serious. So if you're working, please use LinkedIn. It's your business card of the future, and make sure that you have it up to date at all times. You never know when a recruiter may reach out to you. You may be happy in your job, but a recruiter may see something and offer you something that you never dreamed would come your way. A couple more questions, and then we're going to switch to our chat box questions. Let's talk salary. Salary negotiation is something that's very uncomfortable for most job seekers. I'd like to hear some advice on how to handle that dance, that salary negotiation dance. Silas, will you take that question to begin with for us?
Yeah, dance is a fun way to put it. I think I see this more and more, and honestly, it's a conversation I'm getting more comfortable with having, but I think it's probably a little uncomfortable for us on our side of the phone as well. But I get it. At the end of the day, you want to, kind of show your worth, and if that offer isn't where you think you're at, I think that's okay to counter. I think what helps with that is having a reason why behind that counter amount, not just throwing out a number and hoping that it sticks, but okay, if I offer you 60 and you think you're more in line with 70, what is the why behind that? The way we're structured at KFB, I am not the person making the salary decision. I go back to my HR director as well as the hiring team, the hiring manager and their supervisors, and I'm communicating that message of why back to them. So I think it really helps me and helps the process when you have a reason why behind that salary counter. What we take into account is obviously the skills, knowledge, and experience that you have on your resume, but we're also taking into account the people here who are in that role already. We don't want to always bring in people who are going to make more than the people who are already here. That's a great way to just kill culture, kill morale, and lose good people. So it's not so much a personal thing. If we're not getting back to the salary you see yourself at, there's a lot of other factors that we're weighing. So I really tried to take the personal out of it and look more so as we're looking at salary benchmarks, we're looking at what people currently make here at the organization. And that is why I'm coming to you with the salary that I am. So I hope that helps.
Sure. So be armed with research if you're the job seeker on the competitive salaries and be able to justify why perhaps you would feel warranted for the higher end, perhaps of a salary bracket, and see where that conversation goes. Who else would like to add a little advice on salary negotiation?
I'll chime in there. But honestly, Carolyn, I think you just hit on the point that I was going to mention, and that is researching, you know, and knowing that, hey, you know what, I know I'm a new grad. Let's say I'm just going to throw out an example as a new grad. You know, I know that looking for a position that pays X amount of dollars because I've done my research. I don't want to go in and ask for $10,000 more than that, you know. And then, as Silas has already mentioned, generally having that conversation with someone who may not know, you know, I don't mind having that conversation with someone. It is a little uncomfortable, but as he mentioned too, I've become more comfortable with, you know, educating someone, you know, and saying that, hey, this is how it goes, or this is how salary is calculated, not just by your experience and your education, but we look at things like equity, you know, time and position, things like that, and people who are working in this position, not only within our business, but other businesses. And that's how we calculate things. So like I said, just to mimic what Silas said, it's helped. And even with someone saying, hey, you know what, I know that, but before that, I have this and I have that and I have these skills, you know, kind of going back and saying, hey, I would like to counter offer, you know, that gives us a chance to look at some things, you know, let's, you know, and say, hey, you know what, well, we may be able to offer this person a little more because of this, and that. And that's one of the good reasons of having that resume prepared and making sure that you have these skills and things listed and these experiences listed, because looking at that resume and application is how we're going to draw out those experiences to help calculate your pay.
Excellent. Let's take a couple of questions before we wrap up from the chat box. Lindsay?
Yes, there are some good final questions coming in. The first one is, when submitting a resume and filling out the application, how in-depth does the application need to be if your resume is attached?
Okay. I know with the University of Kentucky, Nicole addressed that a little bit earlier. You want to treat the application and the resume as standalone pieces. Never say, see resume. Some departments only look at the resume. Some look at the application only. So treat those as standalone pieces and fill them both out completely. More so even the application, because as Nicole mentioned, that also is how salary offers are, how they get at a salary offer is often combing that application, looking very specifically at experience. Would anyone else like to chime in on that?
I will. I have a lot of different, sometimes my managers will go and look at our ATS, and some only pull resumes. That's how they want to, you know, talk to folks, is based on the resume. Some only pull the applications and kind of look at what they put on the application. So I think it is, like you said, very important to treat each of these as a separate document, because you don't know who's going to be looking at these and who's pulling what. Like I said, some only do resumes and some only do applications. So it's important that you just treat each of them as separate documents.
That's the safe route, it sounds like. Next question.
This question is for the panelist. As recruiters, do you think LinkedIn Premium is worth the cost for job seekers?
Who can speak to that one from a recruiter perspective?
I'll give a stab at it. I will, like I said before, our jobs are automatically scraped by LinkedIn. So when someone applies, it automatically is going to go back to our career site, and it'll just say it maybe came from LinkedIn, but it doesn't tell me if it was, a premium package or if it was just a standard LinkedIn profile. I think if you're actively, deep in a career search and you're wanting to do those inbox mail messages, I think that's maybe one of those premium features. But other than that, I honestly am not going to know the difference from how I'm using LinkedIn if you're a premium subscriber or not.
I think like Melinda said too, I don't know if I want to say this out loud, but I think it's kind of gimmicky in a sense. Like, we don't know if you're using it, and you can still message with people within the organization. So for instance, if you apply for something at TempurSealy or Kentucky Farm Bureau, you could message the HR director. You could find them on LinkedIn and message them, let them know you've applied. And so I don't know if you necessarily need the premium version. So I think I agree with Melinda on this one. Good stab.
Okay, next question. Okay, we're all caught up on questions. At this point, I would like to have you all show some appreciation for our panelists in the chat box. Also, panelists, feel free to put your contact information or company information in the chat box. We really appreciate your wisdom, your insight. You all are in the trenches every day, and thank you so much for sharing with us today and our audience job search tips and strategies. Our panelists at this point can go mute and hide their video, and I'll have Diana come forward to share the rest of our program.
Well, I too want to thank the panel. Each and every week, we often market this as being our maybe our best session of each semester, but certainly I know it is very worthwhile with all the insight that our panelists give us each and every time. And this was no disappointment this year for sure. So thanks again. Now we want to talk about who's hiring. We're on now to landing the job, getting the job. So employers with active job leads, please make your way to the chat box, raise your hand, and we will allow you to, with the spotlight, to announce your job lead. If you want, you could email us those job leads by noon today at jobclub@uky.edu, and we'll include them in our newsletter that goes out later on this afternoon. Do we have any online that would like to announce those job leads? Okay. We'll be sure and email them, and we will appreciate that. Job Club facilitators always like to spotlight what's going on in their areas. And I'll begin with Cooperative Extension. Again, it's fall. We are thrilled with all the resources and programs that are lined up for this fall season. So I encourage you, go to your local extension office. There is one in all 120 counties, and you will really find a wealth of information and resources at those extension offices. Fayette County is no exception, and they are loaded with wonderful ideas and opportunities to volunteer and to do all kinds of work with you. So check out Extension. Human Resources, obviously we have updates from UK Steps, and I think Nicole, you're going to step in now and give us some job leads.
All righty, thanks, Diane. So yes, I know I mentioned a payroll analyst. We are currently seeking and interviewing for that position. So if you're interested, feel free to message me directly or visit our website. And I've actually listed the link there, and I'll put the link for the job Actually, that'll be in our newsletter later today. So I'll make sure that that's in our Job Club newsletter later today. But we also have some administrative assistant positions and medical assisting, patient registration. So there are several, but that payroll analyst and records clerk, those are two key positions that we're trying to fill immediately. And so thank you guys again for attending Job Club today, and I'll give it back to Diana.
Thank you, Nicole. We're thrilled to have Nicole as a facilitator, and you should be too, because you have a direct line to that temporary steps opportunity. So don't hesitate to reach out to Nicole. UK Career Services, we have lots going on there in the fall as well. I know homecoming at UK is next week, and they're busy reaching out to alumni and to the general public as well. So you can see their services are online, and you can go to www.ukalumni.net/career events. So reach out to our career services at UK Alumni. Next time at Job Club, it'll be the last Tuesday, which is the second and fourth. We're in the fourth Tuesday of October, and our title is Strategies for Answering the 10 Most Common Interview Questions. That should spike your interest to know just what those are so that you'll be prepared for that interview. Sara Madison, she is with Talent Development Consultant with Coastal Cloud, and we couldn't be more thrilled that she is, I think, a first-time presenter for us, and she is sharing those 10 most intriguing questions. So be sure and join us on October 25th. And until next time, we look forward to seeing you. Be sure and check out our LinkedIn site. We are always posting resources and job leads during the next 2 weeks. And we hope that you have indicated that you want our newsletter as well. So on behalf of Cooperative Extension, UK Alumni, and HR UK, thank you for joining us today.